Joining us now is Samantha Berg. She's a former trainer at SeaWorld Orlando. Good to have you with us. Give us an idea. Tilikum,
thank you. Good morning.
Tilikum is, as Mike just pointed out, over 20 years, in the last few years, I should say, 3 people were killed. Even if they're not trainers in the pool, should Tilikum be back as part of the show?
Well, here's the deal with Tilikum. He's been out of shows for about 13 months, so he's really completely out of condition. He's also been extremely stressed because he's got broken teeth and he's been on antibiotics on and off. We know he's chronically dehydrated because he's eating about 10 gallons of gelatin a day, which is about 80 pounds of gelatin, just to keep him hydrated because he's eating dead fish. And he's also just been really isolated. So, of course, putting him back in the shows would be a good thing for him. It would get him back in condition and it would be socially stimulating for him. So from that standpoint, you know, SeaWorld does have a point that putting Tilikum back in the show would be a good thing for him and for his mental health and for his emotional health and for his physical health. But on the other hand, as you guys just said, Tilikum has been involved in the death of 3 people over the past 20 years. So when you put him back into the show, of course, he's going to have more interaction with trainers, and you're risking that another tragedy could happen. You know, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but somebody could make a mistake, and there could be a 4th death. I really don't think it's in SeaWorld's best interest to take that risk.
How much did you know about Tilikum when you were a trainer there? How much did SeaWorld tell you about this whale's past?
Well, I was at Shamu Stadium in '92 when Tilikum arrived, and my understanding about Tilikum's involvement with Kelty Burns' death was that Kelty slipped and fell in the pool, and then the other whales actually were involved in her death, and all Tilikum did was carry Kelty's dead body around on his back, and it took 2 hours to retrieve Kelty. My understanding was actually she died of hypothermia relatively quickly. Since '92, of course, '92 is pre-internet days, so now I've done a lot of research, and what I've learned is Kelty Burns' death was actually very similar to Dawn's death in that she fell in, one of the whales grabbed her, kept her from getting back out, and then Tilikum and Haida and Nootka, the other 2 whales at Sealand in the Pacific, all were involved in preventing Kelty from getting out of the water. They actively prevented her from getting out of the water, so Tilikum was actually involved in her death in a larger way than I knew about when I was working at the stadium.
Do you think trainers there, in your experience as a trainer at SeaWorld Orlando, have all of the information and the protection they need from the company?
You know, I just think that when you put animals in captivity and confinement, and you're looking at the potential for dangerous and unpredictable behavior. These animals are severely stressed because of their diet and because of their lack of socialization. And so no matter how much information trainers are given, there's still always that potential that something tragic could happen. On the other hand, I don't feel that the trainers have been given enough information. Just based on what I knew when I was there, my understanding of the animal's past was very limited. In fact, there had been 30 incidents between killer whales and trainers prior to my being hired at the park, and I didn't know about any of them until after I left SeaWorld. So I think that's a serious mistake on SeaWorld's part that they weren't letting people know the history of all the animals.
Well, we may find out more, too, about what happened in April. OSHA is holding hearings. Of course, they had fined SeaWorld last summer, and they're holding hearings to see if that fine will be valid. We'll be looking at those. Samantha Berg, really appreciate your insight. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.